everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I'm your co host, Austin, and today I want to talk about going on an adventure. So, this past Friday, I had the opportunity to commute from Denver, Colorado to Salt Lake City, Utah, and the route that I took was Interstate 70, going west out of Denver, through the Rocky Mountains and into Salt Lake. Now, for most of you, that seems like a long commute. Driving through mountains doesn't sound fun. Probably some good views. 8.5 hour drive. What significance does that have? Surely it's a beautiful drive, but half of it's in the desert portion of Utah, and half of it is through major undulating elevation changes through the Rockies. So what precisely about this commute, about this trip, would be beneficial, insightful, and overall just an incredible experience? How do we get to that point? And for me, we get to that point through a few different manners. So firstly, I want to offer the history that I have with this with this portion of the United States. So with this area here, it has been since 2019 that I've been coming out to Utah to work, and have fallen in love with the city, fallen in love with the valley, and ultimately the state. I haven't been to all four corners, but I've been to 3 out of the 4. So I've really come to love the area. I mean, I've spent, of the past 6 years, I would say 2.5 to 3 of it, minimum, has been spent specifically here in Salt Lake City. So I've certainly have come to love, whether that be forced or not forced. Definitely not forced in my situation here, only because the area has much beauty to behold and to experience, and has a lot waiting for you. The people here have been mostly kind to me. I will say the only times that my vehicle has ever been broken into, twice, has been in the state of Utah and here in Salt Lake City, and that has not caused any apprehension to coming out here and enjoying the time that I have while I'm out here. It was really the first time. It was there in 2019. It would have been in about September. I had flown out here for 2 weeks with a fellow technician of whom I started with. He was kind of training me on site, and he was the one that was coming out here to Utah typically, and so we, when him and I traveled out here, he knew the area. He knew he knew to get me out of the hotel room as much as possible, and we certainly traveled, and we certainly did our thing, and it was an incredible experience. But then, this being 3 to 4 months into the job, eventually the training wheels are going to have to be taken off, and I was going to have to start working alone. And Salt Lake City is where that started. Nestled up in between the mountains of a rocky nature, I'd come to love this area very, very much. Driving up in between the different canyons, Big Cottonwood, Little Cottonwood, Mill Creek, and heading up north, to, was it Huntsville Reservoir, I believe. There's a reservoir up east of the Northern Valley, up in the mountains. Traveling south, going to American Fork, Spanish Fork, traveling into the Uintas, Moab, going out west into the Salt Flats. I mean, there's certainly a lot of things that you can do here, and traveling all the way down south. Did the the half marathon down in that city, yeah. Oh my, it was just this last September that I did that. Cedar City, there we go. The Cedar City half marathon. That was such an incredible experience. But I've come to love the area, and I have him to thank to getting me out and about, because up until that point I was still just coming out of university. I was broke, and so working in like Minneapolis and more local to the Midwest, I just gotten used to just staying in the hotel room in the evenings, but I was going home for the weekends. But obviously with trips out here, it was for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time. I have the entire weekend to where I need to fill it up with stuff. I can't just sit here in the hotel room all day. And so he kind of helped, promote that sort of engagement, but the motivation, I guess, to get me out and about. So, but then he left, and I was out here solo, and it was up until the end of February 2020 that I was out here traveling solo, flying into here. I had not turned 25 yet, and so when I was out here, I was renting. For being under 25, there's the insurance. The rental companies charge extra for under 25. They charge extra fees, or at least they did back in the day in 2019. And so I was there was a rental car service that Audi provides, that they had a branch here, and they would pick you up from the hotel and everything. And it was actually cheaper to use them, because they would be more expensive if I were over 25 and using a typical rental company. But since I was under, the typical ones charge the fees. Audi did not. So I went with the Audi. And I was already a lover of Audi at that point and an Audi owner, and so I got a little discount there too. But it was incredible. I was really enjoying my time, just driving all over the place. I mean, I drove up to southern Idaho, to the Craters of the Moon National Park. Went up to Jackson Hole, the Grand Tetons. I mean, I did a lot while I was out here, and it came near and dear to my heart. And then I would return here throughout when 2020 hit. We all know what happened, and so I stopped flying. Well, May of 2020, when I finally got my job back, they were like, well, you need to drive. And we need you to drive out west. And I'm like, all right, that shouldn't be a problem. So started driving out west from Ohio, and at that point, we also picked up a customer in Aspen, Colorado, which those of you know or don't, it's in the Rockies, in the mountains, up at, Aspen, the city itself. Well, it's a very small city, a town. Very ritzy town, very affluent. And it's at 9,400 feet elevation, or no, 8,000, 9,000 feet elevation. It's really high up there. And so but it's a beautiful city. Again, very, very affluent, and I was there working on some all-electrics, and split between there and here with the all-electrics for downtown Salt Lake City. And so what had become secondhand to me was the drive between Aspen and here, which Aspen is off of 70. and then in the middle of the Rockies. So you take 70 and you hit Glenwood Springs, and then you would head south and up into Aspen, or you continue on 70, obviously going west, and then hit 151, something like that, head up into the Uintas, and eventually hit Salt Lake City. And so, but then I would obviously, coming from Ohio, drive into Denver, and then Denver to Aspen. So, I mean, this Denver and into Colorado on I-70 has just become something that I've frequented a lot. 2020 and 2021 in general, I was, there were moments to where another technician and myself, we would drive in tandem between Boulder, north of Denver, Salt Lake City, and then Aspen. So what we would do is we would do this big circle. So and this would happen in summer and winter, unfortunately, but we would do, we'd go from Denver, meet up in Denver, go to Aspen, and then go keep coming west to go to Salt Lake City and north, and then come around on 80 through Wyoming, and then come back down into Boulder, Denver, and then Aspen, and then Salt Lake City, and just do a big circle. Lots of times. Lots and lots of times. And so it became second nature, this route. And so there are lots of stops, lots of views, lots of little towns, coffee shops, restaurants that I've come to love that are on this trip. And so one of them is, and I might throw a photo on here or even a video, of exit 121. This is just before Glenwood Springs. You're actually going through something canyon, Creeks Canyon, Eagle Canyon, something like that. And so there's an exit with a rest stop, but the rest stop, there's a river that runs right beside it, and you can walk down to it, and lots of little rocks, but also a few bigger rocks that you can sit on there right on the riverfront. It really is an incredible place to experience. And you can look up into the trees, into the mountains, because I mean it is a very narrow canyon. I mean, kudos to those that had to design and build Interstate 70 to go through this canyon. And so it's really tight, and so you're looking up like this to the mountains. It's so cool while you're sitting there on the river. And that spot specifically means a lot to me, because I used to stop there all the time just because it's a really convenient place to stop. Before you'd get into Glenwood Springs, you'd always have traffic. As soon as you get to Glenwood, you get off 70 onto 82, and what should be a 25-30 minute drive to Basalt from Glenwood turns into a 50-minute drive because it's just traffic. And so I would always stop right before Glenwood there on 70. You just use the restroom and take a break. And for some odd reason, I just started taking selfies there on the river. And not a bunch, but I do have selfies there from the river for quite a few of my visits. And it was really right before I knew that I was going to be taking this most recent drive to where we are today. I went back into my photo album on my phone and found those selfies, and it was really cool to see. Not just cool, it was calming and interesting, but really quite a reality check to see how much I've changed just in demeanor over time, but also, the evolution of Austin over the past 5 to 6 years. It's certainly been a lot, and not only having that visual perspective of that evolution, but also when I see those photos, I can then remember where I was mindset wise in those. I see the Austin before my cancer diagnosis, and I know what that Austin was going through. I know what that Austin wasn't going through. Life was much more simple. Life was much more focused on just doing my job and just working and traveling and having fun. I didn't have a whole lot of cares in the world. I didn't have a whole lot of aspirations or goals, or I wasn't serving anybody. Well, I was only serving myself. That was the only person I really was serving. And there's certainly I don't want to say beauty, but there's certainly something valuable in looking back at that perspective that I would have had in those days to take away and maybe benefit me in the present or even in the future. And yet most of what I was able to conjure up in my reminiscing of those times, not a whole lot of things were beneficial. Certainly my outlook on life has changed quite a bit, quite substantially. My goals have been updated, have even been implemented, have even had an Austin attempting to achieve them. My overall aspirations for life they've been upgraded tenfold, I would say. And that's one of the bigger changes that I'm very thankful for. And just how I looked physically, the shape that I was in. I was not, 2019, 2020, 2021, the first 6 months, I was not in too much of a concern about my physical shape. Now, beginning to middle of 2021 is where Matt and I had first really started working together, when he was doing the Impossible Health Coach. And so I started taking my diet a bit more serious then. I was staying at, I was staying at the Element in Basalt, Colorado, which was like 15 minutes down the road from Aspen. Since all the hotels around Aspen were, starting at $800 a night, I stayed in the town below where all the workers lived that went up to Aspen to work. And the hotel there was only $250, $300 a night. So it was either that or I stayed an hour away down in Glenwood Springs, and that, again, because of the traffic, no. So I was treating myself better. I was eating better. The Element by Weston has, full kitchens. So I had a full kitchen. God. Even thinking about it now, wow. It was a very very different time for me back then. I can look fondly upon it. I can. I'm not upset with myself for the decisions that I was making back then. I wish that I had done more. I wish that I had a service, or I wish I had a purpose to serve. I wish I had goals, and I wish I had aspirations, and I wish I did this, I wish I did that. But at the same time, that Austin back then didn't have much to care, didn't have much to worry about back then. My health was there. Could I have had an 8-pack? Sure. Could I have squatted 500 pounds? Sure. But I was able to hike. I was able to walk around. I was doing just fine. I was eating okay. I was drinking a lot, and smoking a lot. But those two things are definitely in the past, thankfully. But I didn't have to worry about surviving. You could probably call it thriving, you know, a purposelessness thriving. But, you know, again, I'm not mad. I can look upon it fondly. I'm not impressed, but I can look upon it fondly. And there certainly are some beautiful memories that I had back then. And one of them is exit 121 on Interstate 70. That is that river there sitting beside it, and recognizing the Austin that experienced it back then and recognizing the Austin that is experiencing it now is kind of like, and I should have written it down. There is a Stoic philosopher, or a Stoic mind, that has a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it remembered, but remembered it verbatim, but I have paraphrased. It's basically, the man that steps into a river is not the same man, nor is the water the same. I'm really butchering this. But stepping up to that river now, when the last time that I had was back in 2021, the river is not the same. The situation is not the same. Life is not the same. Time has passed. Nor am I the same Austin that has walked down to that river to enjoy its view, to enjoy its grandeur, but it's also to enjoy its peace. I'm not the same Austin that I was back then. For better or for worse, and I feel that it is certainly for the better. And that is one of many parts of that overarching adventure, I suppose, for that section of interstate in the middle of the United States, in the middle of Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains. Adventures of old and new put together into one, and to give me a sort of, it gave me perspective on what I'm doing today and what it means. That even though life back then may have had a lot less worries and concerns swirling around my head than now, I'm a much more stronger, consistent, and reliable individual than I was back then. To where the hardships that I've had to face in the past three plus years now are hardships that have only produced a more stable and steady Austin. And that's certainly a big takeaway from that adventure, is that you can learn from it. You can learn a lot. The good things, the bad things, the not so shiny things, the quite embarrassing things that I had engaged back then in versus now. And to not be so judgmental of yourself, because I do fall into that trap of being very harsh on myself. You've probably seen or heard kind of hints at that throughout this recording, and I do. I struggle to this day, and I will continue to struggle in being extremely self-critical. And going on an adventure like this just 4 or 5 days ago had given me a new look into the past 6 years and what I've experienced in those. The first 3 of the first half of that 6 being fairly monotonous and fun, but without direction, and the past 3 requiring so much stability and focus from myself. It has certainly been the past 6 years have been extremely impactful. They really have. Because I went from one extreme to another. And when I look upon those first 3 years, post-university and pre-cancer diagnosis, I really have to watch myself. I can be extremely critical. I certainly had my flaws, and they were wide open for the world to have seen if I had exposed myself. If I had shown the world where I was mentally, physically, emotionally, and especially spiritually, I would be put. What you would have seen under that light would not have required any type of squinting of the eyes. I was very, what I was doing was very out there, it was very obvious, and it was pretty darn ugly. And because I had no direction, because I was not looking to expand any further on my service to others, I would say that's one of the biggest critiques that I have of back then, is that I was serving myself, and I was happy with it, I was content with it, and I was certainly doing just fine. But without having that focus and that purpose that I have so much of now, I now only see even more of the reason and the requirement of me to maintain that consistency, to continue to evolve my form of discipline, and ultimately chase and pursue, did it again, to pursue those goals, my impossible goals. I now, more than ever, see the importance of keeping that, of responding to a duty that I had touched upon at my time in university. But during that 3-year span before my cancer diagnosis, I had lost it. I'd completely lost it, and it took a cancer diagnosis and 3 years of battling cancer, of 3 relapses, for me to finally realize that I needed to set down the salt shaker, get over some things, but also recognize that I had been missing a lot about life, a lot about finding a purpose and pursuing that purpose, and not living for just me, living for others. That really is my biggest takeaway from going on such an adventure just 5 days ago. That's my takeaway. Where can we go and what can we do when we take a look back into what we have done before? And what can we learn from it? How can we provide ourselves actionable items today from mistakes or just a lack of actionable items from the past and apply them to the future? And so taking that trip on I-70, it really is a beautiful journey. The pathway that the pathway that you take, it's incredible. I mean, Silverthorne, Copper Mountain, Breckenridge. It's Breckenridge. You go through another couple of passes there shortly when you get into the mountains from Denver. I would say the best part is definitely coming out of the tunnel and then going down. It's like 5 or 6 mile of just like 7+% grade down. I mean, you're just flying. You don't have to touch the throttle for quite some time. And then you get down into Silverthorne, and it's just wow. There's a beautiful lake and reservoir off to the to your left if you're going out west, so to the south, I suppose, the south of 70. And then there's just picturesque rocky top, snow-capped, partially still, thankfully, when I passed it, this past week. And it's just the sun was shining down onto the lake, and so you have this big, beautiful lake, snow-capped mountains in the background. I mean, it was just there's a beautiful, lovely little stop, it's not a rest stop, it's a scenic view point stop that you can get off there on both sides of the highway, thankfully. Now, the one on the westbound direction, where I was coming out here to Salt Lake City, it's not as cool. There's a few trees in your way for the viewpoint, but if you're heading towards Denver, towards the east, the eastbound viewpoint stop is definitely a lot nicer, definitely a lot bigger, a lot more parking. It's also a chain. They also use it for attaching chains for the winter when you're going up towards the tunnel. And so, I absolutely love that part in particular. That's definitely a beautiful view, but I'll put up a few photos. I'll post a few photos on Instagram as well of just the different shots that I'd gotten during that drive. A couple of videos. It is serene for me. For me, I would say, now I haven't driven a whole lot through Montana, and I've yet to get up to the northeast part of the states. Hoping to change that here soon. But without a doubt, it's certainly the most beautiful drive that I've ever taken. Anywhere. Almost, maybe not in the world. In the United States, it is my favorite drive to take, most certainly, is Interstate 70 from Denver to Grand Junction in Colorado. Once you get out to the eastern part of Utah, it's a bit deserty, a bit open, and nothing. But it's still beautiful nonetheless, because it's Utah. Utah's very gorgeous. I love Utah. I talk as if a Utah representative has finger guns to my head. No, seriously, I appreciate Utah, and it holds a very dear place in my heart. But Eastern Utah is a desert, pretty open and vague, but besides the point, it's still beautiful. But that drive through the Rockies, there's nothing to really test its grandeur and beauty. Nothing that I've experienced in the States so far, though. So, again, I hope to change that here soon to covering more of the States. But, yeah, I just wanted to share with you my time in the Rocky Mountains. I'm trying to do my best out here. We are divide and conquer yet again. And I have to be honest with you, it's rough coming out here alone and away from everybody, away from the family, away from away from Belpre, away from monsters, away from everybody. It's difficult coming out here. And spending this time I'm working both, full-time job and working for the business and working on myself, working on writing, a lot of work to do, a lot of play. I certainly, as you can see the mountains there, this, to this side of that peak that you see right there, so just over this way, is actually the drive up to Big Cottonwood Canyon, and I'll probably be heading up there, during the week here. We're coming up to July 4th weekend, so it's going to be heavy traffic. So I'm definitely not going to be going up there this coming weekend. This weekend might be a time for me to stay in the hotel room. I don't mind big crowds, but the biggest of crowds will certainly be up that road and up the road just south of here for Little Cottonwood Canyon. But definitely up here. There are a couple of huge, I believe, Brighton and Solitude ski resorts, towns, but huge resorts up there, are up that way, and attracts a lot of people. Even though they're ski resorts, July 4th weekend, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are gonna be a lot of people up there, and I'm not into that, and definitely gonna stay away from that. I'm not a partier. Never have been, never will be. So, but it'd be a really nice time. Get a few days off while I'm out here, and just find some coffee shops, find some time to sit down, to write, to really meditate as well. I try to utilize this time as much as possible again while I'm alone. It's unfortunate, and it's really starting to take its toll more and more for oh my, for myself. For me being out here all the time, yeah, for myself to be out here alone, it's starting to take its toll, but it's what we have to do for now. And so I want to take and make my time here as work filled as possible to accomplish as much as I can, and to achieve a lot. That's our whole goal. That's the whole goal here. That's the whole idea. Is to do what I can and do what we can to serve those around us. Serve you. Provide you with experiences like lovely adventures through the Rocky Mountains and what it could mean to us. Enact a little bit of self-love, I would say. It's the most important part. It's the most important thing to take away from that. I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I'm very excited for the future and for all of the adventures that we're going to be taking together. So I would love to thank you for watching or tuning in. There we go. A little bit of a lighter podcast, just a little bit of story time, I suppose. A little bit of a fireside chat without our fearless leader beside me. Just wanted to keep it on the lighter side today. So we have a lovely weekend coming up. July 4th weekend will be here upon us here shortly, and I wanted to keep it uplifting for this recording, just because it's a time to celebrate, and for us to celebrate, while we can, and to be thankful for the future that we have and the future adventures that we can take. So again, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching. And whenever you look upon the past, see a video or see a photo, watch a video from times of recent or far in the past, and you see a different you, and you somehow connect to that past you. I understand if that can be challenging. I can understand if that is a very difficult thing to accomplish. I look upon my past self with a lot of judgment. But you also need to give yourself a lot of grace. And use it as fuel for the future. Because us here at Impossible Performance are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Take care, and as always, be impossible.